morning, good afternoon, and good evening. How are you guys doing? Okay, decided to show you how my road looks like as I'm traveling. By the way, here I'll give you a little thing about Egypt. You're not supposed to do what I'm doing now. Like, technically speaking, this is a one-way road, but the U-turn is so far away that even the GPS has deemed this road, which is the slow road, to be a two-way road. And if Google decides that it's doing that one, we're doing that as well. But anyways, wanted to talk a little bit about my studying and my studies and my thesis, what I did for my thesis, because if you've noticed on LinkedIn, I'm a little bit on the negative side, well, a lot, not a little, and very much have a love-hate relationship with Egypt. And the reason why I have a love-hate relationship with Egypt is due to my thesis. Because I've seen Egypt at its glory. Like, I've seen it at its best. In modern time history, by the way. I'm not talking about ancient Egypt. I'm not talking about ancient times. Ancient times is a whole different thing. But not too long ago, I'm talking about like 60 years ago, like 60 to 70 years ago, which is the monarch and the beginning of Gamal Abdel Nasser. Egypt was a lot different than it is now. It was far more progressive. You had women empowerment. Actually, during Nasser, we had a lot of women empowerment. Even though they did not hold any positions, they were actually treated much better than they are now. Even though now, technically speaking, on the surface, they're holding positions, so they look like Egypt looks like it's empowering females, but that's a surface thing, much deeper on the side. That's why I'm saying I have a love-hate relationship. The other thing about Egypt that's soul-crushing when I did my thesis was how things changed. See, back in the monarchs and when Egypt was under the Khedive Ismail and all these lovely people that have been doing that, even like King Farouk, yada 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 yada, what happened was Egypt was actually prospering. It was actually in a much better place than it was now. Yes, it was under the British occupation for the longest time, but on the other side, it was actually prosperous. The Egyptian pound currency was, for, if memory serves me correct, about 1.2 to 1.3 US dollars. Now it's one US dollar is equal to around 20 Egyptian pounds. So yay for that. The other thing about it was, the other thing that was actually soul crushing was the educational system. Educational system until Sadat, Mubarak, like beginning of Mubarak was one of the best, if not the best educational system out there. People flocked to Egypt from the Arabian world. We're not talking about England, we're not talking about France, we're not talking about the US, we're talking about just Egypt. And people flocked in the Arabian world to Egypt, especially to Azhar, which is the Islamic scholarly university. And it was beyond anything. If you had one of the Egyptian universities on your CV up until 2008, you were deemed, without an interview, you would actually get into a job without an interview. And that's how good it was. But alas, it crumbled. And it crumbled to the point where it became a laughingstock. And most people will have an educational system in Egypt, but won't really know anything. Or like have it so outdated that it's just, again, it's not really worth it anymore. It's not worth dealing with it. It's not worth learning it. And it's sad. I would like to go into a deep and much deeper situation and much deeper information about it, because it is fascinating how things changed and why they changed, because they've changed drastically under Sadat. And Sadat has the best intention, but the worst execution, according to research, by the way, because I know there are Sadatians out there who are gonna kill me, who are like gonna just like scold me and be like, Sadat was the best person ever. Not really. And they'll be like, oh, you're from Nasser. Well, research was actually Nasser. Most of the research that you would read would say that Nasser was actually to be quote unquote, was actually a benevolent dictator, which are two words you will never hear together, but it's the reality of the situation. He was a dictator. He did do dictatorship things, but he had the best intention for the people, to the point where he and the non-aligned movements actually had a saying in the UN. While back then, the UN, the countries that were considered developing countries did not have a say in the UN. Oh, Nasser changed that. He was like, nope. Him, Socrates, Nehru, and like the founders of the non-aligned movement actually changed that. And Joseph from Yugoslavia. Tito. Again, it's fascinating, and I would love to talk about it more, because it will show you more why I'm very negative about Egypt now, and why, again, I have a love-hate relationship with this country, because it will explain a lot. It will explain why things have turned out the way they have turned out, why are we in a horrible situation as it is, and why is it that everyone is currently doing their best to get out of the country. And those who are filthy rich are getting into the country because they can use their power and their money for the power. And it's fascinating. I would love to talk about it more, so I will talk about it more, but maybe not now, maybe later on. So anyways, bye bye.